I looked in the mirror this morning, Sonny, and I honestly didn't recognize the guy staring back at me. He looked successful, he looked calm. He was smiling that perfect, polished smile, and I wanted to scream. It felt like looking at a stranger wearing my skin. I tried to say I'm not okay, but the reflection just kept smiling. That's when I knew. I'm not living my life anymore. I'm performing it. And I don't know how to stop the show.
That stranger in the mirror, he has a name. And the reason you want to scream is that the real you is suffocating underneath him. Welcome back, my lovely Sunnies. You are listening to Sunny English Bite, the place where we sharpen your mind and your English at the same time. I'm your host, Sunny.
And I'm Alex. Still recovering from that heavy opening, honestly.
I know, Alex, but what you shared is something so many of our Sunnies experience, but rarely talk about. Today, we are diving deep into the hidden architecture of our personality. We're going to explore why we feel fake, why we explode over small things, and how to find the person buried under the performance. Let's start right where Alex left off. Chapter 1, The Mask We Wear.
The mask. Yeah, it feels less like a mask and more like a full-body suit these days.
Right. The brilliant Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung called this the persona. In Latin, persona literally means mask, the kind actors wore in ancient Rome to signify their role.
So basically, I'm just an actor who forgot he's on stage.
In a way, but let's look at why we do it. At your job, Alex, walk me through that performance. What does it actually look like?
Well, I'm Alex the Reliable. Even when I'm drowning in work, if my boss asks for help, I smile and say, absolutely, no problem. Inside, my chest is tight, my heart is racing, and I'm thinking, I can't do this. But on the outside, I'm cool as a cucumber. I never disagree. I never admit I'm overwhelmed.
Exactly. That is the persona at work. Jung believed the persona is necessary. Think of it as a social lubricant or a protective skin. It helps us navigate society, keeps things polite, and protects our vulnerable inner selves from the harsh world. We need it to function.
Okay, so it's a survival tool. If I told my boss exactly what I was thinking every time, I'd probably be fired.
Precisely. A healthy persona is like a good suit. You put it on for a meeting, you look professional, but you take it off when you get home. The problem, and what you're describing, is what Jung called the identification with the persona.
Identification. Meaning I think I am the suit?
Yes, you forget you're wearing a uniform. You start believing that you are only valid if you are Alex the Reliable. You repress any part of yourself that doesn't fit that narrow description. And when the mask is glued to your face, you lose contact with your true feelings. That creates that sense of inner emptiness or being a fraud.
Wow, glued to your face. That is exactly how it feels. But if I'm only showing the good parts, where do the bad parts go? They don't just disappear, do they?
They certainly do not. Physics tells us energy cannot be destroyed, only changed. In psychology, it's the same, which brings us to the most fascinating part of today's discussion. Chapter 2, The Shadow.
The shadow. I've heard this term in movies. It usually implies something evil or villainous.
It sounds ominous, doesn't it? But Jung's definition is more nuanced. Imagine that from the day you were born, you dragged an invisible long bag behind you. A
Bag. Okay, I'm picturing it.
As a child, you are whole. You express everything. But then society starts its work. Maybe you got angry and screamed, and your parents said, "Good boys don't get angry." So you take your anger, ball it up, and throw it into the invisible bag.
I see. Or if I cried, I was told to man up, so sadness goes in the bag too.
Exactly. The shadow is the container for everything we've disowned or repressed because we were taught it was unacceptable. It's the dark room of our personality. It holds traits like greed, jealousy, laziness, and aggression.
So it is the bad stuff. It's a trash bag for our worst traits.
Not just the worst traits, Alex, and this is crucial for our Sunnies to understand. The bag also contains the golden shadow.
Bold and shadow. That sounds much better. What is that?
It's the positive potential you repressed because it didn't fit your environment. Imagine a boy born into a family of strict, serious lawyers. But this boy has a wild, sensitive, artistic soul. To survive in that family, to be loved, he has to repress his creativity. He throws his artistic talent into the bag.
That's tragic. So 40 years later, he's a lawyer who feels empty because his creativity is locked in the shadow?
Exactly. He might not even know he's creative anymore. He just feels a vague sense of loss. But here is the trickiest part about the shadow. It doesn't stay in the bag. It leaks out.
Freaks out. How?
Through projection. Alex, have you ever met someone who annoyed you instantly? They didn't do anything to you, but just seeing them made you irrationally angry?
Oh, definitely. There's this guy in marketing. He's so loud, so opinionated. He just says whatever he wants, interrupts people. I can't stand him. I feel my blood boil just looking at him.
That visceral reaction, that is your shadow talking. You are Alex the reliable, the quiet, polite one. You have repressed your own urge to be loud, to be assertive, to take up space. When you see him doing it, you aren't just seeing him. You're seeing your own disowned potential reflecting back at you.
Wait, so I hate him because secretly a part of me wants to be like him?
You might not want to be rude like him, but you probably crave the freedom he has. You envy his lack of a filter because your filter is suffocating you. The things that trigger us in others are often the keys to unlocking our own shadow.
That is a lot to process. I need a second. If my anger and my jealousy are actually trying to tell me something, then I've been ignoring the most honest parts of myself.
You have. But don't worry, Sonnies. Understanding this is the first step. The question now is, why are we so afraid to open that bag? Why do we run from the shadow? That is what we're going to cover next. So, we know we have this shadow, this bag of hidden traits, and we know it leaks out in messy ways. The logical question is, why don't we just open the bag and deal with it?
Right, if it's the key to being whole, why is it so terrifying? Why do I feel this resistance in my chest just thinking about it?
Because, Alex, your ego has built walls to keep that bag closed for a reason. This brings us to Chapter 3, the 4 fears of integration.
Or fears. Okay, lay them on me.
The first is the fear of judgment. This is the social fear. You built your persona, Alex the reliable, to be loved and accepted. Your primitive brain thinks, if I drop the mask, the tribe will kick me out and I will die.
That feels 100% accurate. I feel like if I show my frustration or my laziness, people will say, "Who is this guy?" and turn their backs on me. It's the fear that the real me isn't enough.
Exactly. It's the fear of rejection. The second is the fear of losing control. We often view our shadow as a monster. We think, if I let myself get angry, I'll never stop screaming. Or if I let myself cry, I'll drown in sadness.
Like a dam breaking?
Yes, you're afraid the flood will destroy everything you've built. The third is the fear of being unlovable. This is deeper than judgment. It's shame. It's the core belief that you are fundamentally broken, bad, or too much for anyone to handle.
Oof, that hits hard. It's that voice that says I'm unlovable at my core.
And finally, the fear of the unknown. Living with a heavy mask is exhausting, yes, but it's predictable. You know the rules of the game. Integrating your shadow means stepping into a new way of being where you don't have a script. And for a control freak, the unknown is terrifying.
So it's basically choosing between a comfortable hell and an unknown heaven.
Beautifully put, Alex. But here's the good news. The monster isn't as big as you think. Once you turn on the light, you realize it was just a shadow on the wall. So how do we turn on that light? Chapter 4, Individuation, the destruction of a false identity.
Individuation. That sounds like a biological term or something painful.
It can be painful, but it's growing pains. Think of the word. Individual comes from undivided. It means becoming an undivided whole. It is the lifelong process of calling a truce between who you pretend to be, persona, and who you really are, shadow.
A truce. I like that. So I don't have to kill Alex the Reliable.
No, you need him. You need him to pay bills and handle meetings, but he shouldn't be the only one driving the car. Individuation means inviting the other parts of you into the car too.
So it's about management.
Exactly. Imagine your mind is a boardroom. Right now, the persona is the CEO, and he's locked all the other employees in the basement. Individuation is letting them back into the meeting. You listen to your anger. It might say, hey, that person crossed a boundary. You listen to your jealousy. It might say, hey, I really want to do what he is doing.
That's a huge mindset shift. Instead of seeing these emotions as enemies to be crushed, I should see them as messengers delivering urgent mail.
Precisely. When you stop fighting yourself, you have access to all your resources. You stop trying to be perfect, which is impossible, and you start trying to be complete.
Complete. Feels achievable, but it sounds like a long road. How do I know if I am actually getting anywhere? What does complete look like in real life?
That is the perfect question to wrap up our theory section. As Chapter 5, Signs You're Becoming Whole.
Okay, give me some hope, Sonny. What's the payoff?
The first sign is decreased reactivity. Remember the guy in marketing who made your blood boil? Oh, vividly. As you integrate your shadow, he stops bothering you. You might think, wow, he's loud, but you don't feel that visceral rage. Why? Because you've accepted the loud part of yourself. You don't need to project it onto him anymore. The trigger disappears.
That would be such a relief to just be calm. Not fake calm, but actually calm.
The second sign is a surge in energy. Alex, think about how much energy it takes to hold a beach ball underwater.
A lot. You have to constantly push it down.
Repression is the same. You're using 50% of your mental energy just to keep the shadow in the bag. When you stop repressing, that energy is released. You suddenly have the drive to create, to build, to solve problems. The exhaustion you mentioned earlier, that starts to fade.
So my fatigue isn't physical, it's psychological. I'm tired from holding the beach ball.
Exactly. Another sign is authentic relationships. When you stop performing, you give others permission to stop performing too. Your connections become real. You attract people who love the whole you, not just the mask.
That sounds risky, but worth it.
And finally, the best sign, humor. You develop a sense of cosmic humor about yourself. You can laugh at your own flaws. You can say, oh, there I go being a control freak again, without hating yourself. You become lighter.
I think that's what I want most, to just lighten up, to not take Alex so seriously.
And that, Sonny's, is the goal. Not perfection, just lightness, wholeness, being human.
I feel like I have a map now. It's still scary, but at least I know where I'm going.
That's all we can ask for, a map and the courage to take the first step. Speaking of steps, let's move from the what to the how with our vocabulary section. English Bite Vocabulary and Expression section.
All right, Sonny, my brain is full of psychology, but let's fill it with some English too. What are the key takeaways today?
We have 5 power words for you. Let's start with the one we used the most. It's repress.
To push things down. Is this different from suppress? I use them interchangeably.
Great question. That is a common mistake. Suppress is when you knowingly push something down, like holding back a laugh at a funeral. You are aware of it. Repress happens unconsciously. You don't even know you're doing it.
That's a key distinction. So he suppressed his anger to be polite, but he repressed his childhood trauma.
Exactly. Repress is deeper. It's a defense mechanism. Next up is fragmentation.
This comes from fragment, right? A small piece.
Correct. It's the noun form. It describes the state of being broken into small, separate parts. In our context, it's when your work self, home self, and real self are all disconnected.
A good sentence might be, social media often causes a fragmentation of our attention span.
Perfect. It means your focus is scattered.
Okay, number 3. This is my favorite word of the day, visceral.
It's a powerful word. It comes from the Latin word viscera, which means internal organs or guts. So a visceral reaction isn't a logical thought in your head, it's a deep feeling in your body.
Like a gut punch. So instead of saying, I had a strong bad feeling, I could say, I had a visceral reaction of disgust.
Precisely. It sounds much more advanced and descriptive. Our fourth word is reconcile.
I usually hear this in accounting, like reconciling a bank statement.
Yes, balancing the books. But in relationships or psychology, it means finding a way to make two different ideas or people exist together in peace.
So it was hard to reconcile his kind words with his cruel actions, meaning the two things didn't match up.
Exactly. You were trying to make them fit.
And finally,
Authenticity. It's become a buzzword lately, but it means the quality of being real, genuine, or true to one's own personality.
it's the opposite of fake or imitation. People crave authenticity in the world of filters.
Beautiful example. Authenticity is about being the author of your own life. Summary of today's key ideas. All right, let's do a quick recap for our sunnies on the go. Today it was heavy, so let's break it down.
It really was. So, first, we talked about the persona. This is the social mask we wear. It's a necessary tool for survival, but the danger is when we forget we're wearing it and think the mask is our actual face.
Exactly. Then we opened the invisible bag, the shadow. This holds everything we've repressed. It contains our dark traits, yes, but also the golden shadow, our hidden talents and potential that we were too afraid to show.
And we discussed why we keep that bag closed. The 4 fears: fear of judgment, losing control, being unlovable, and the unknown. These are the walls that keep us fragmented.
Right. The solution to breaking down those walls is individuation. It's not about destroying the persona, but inviting the shadow to the table. It's about integration.
And the result is wholeness. You become less reactive, more energetic, and you can finally laugh at yourself. You stop trying to be perfect and start being real. You know, hearing it all summarized, I feel like I have a lot of homework to do on myself this week. It's a little overwhelming.
We all do, Alex. But remember, you don't have to fix everything at once. Just start small. In fact, I have a mission for you and our listeners for this week. A mission? I'm listening. I want you to play detective. Notice who irritates you. When you feel that sudden spike of annoyance at someone, pause. Don't just react. Ask yourself, what does this person have that I am not allowing myself to have?
That is such a tough question, but I promise to try it. So if I get annoyed at a lazy coworker, maybe it means I need to let myself rest more?
Bingo! You are catching on fast. That irritation is just a messenger.
Wow, that's what I love about this channel. It's rare to find a place where I can work on my mental health and my English vocabulary at the same time.
That is exactly our mission here. We believe you don't have to separate learning a language from growing as a person. Why not do both?
Right, leveling up your life while leveling up your English. It's a win-win.
Precisely. Though if you enjoyed this journey of self-discovery and want to keep sharpening your English naturally, please subscribe to Sunny English Bite. Join our community of Sunnies growing brighter every day.
And let us know your shadow moments in the comments.
It's going to be a fascinating discussion. Until then, be kind to yourself, Alex, and be kind to your shadow. Thanks for listening, Sunnies.
See you next time. Bye.